Welcome to the 2023 presentation of the Member Opinion Study for Stonebridge Country Club. Every survey needs a volume of respondents. Let's talk about the number of people and households that participated in this year's survey. It's called a sample profile, and out of 1,495 potential participants, we had 678 complete the survey, which is a 45% response, a pretty good response. And that represents 62% of the households in Stonebridge. So we have a very tight error range of plus or minus 2.8 percentage points, which is the error range associated with a smaller sample than if every member participated, there'd be no error range at all. Let's talk about the demographics of those who did participate. Starting with gender, we had basically pretty much a half and half men and women. Typically, men are more responsive in surveys than women, but in this case, it was pretty darn even. We gave the option for prefer not to respond, and 1% of the sample took that option. From an age perspective, we have three basic categories: younger than 68, 68 to 74, and 75 plus, which when we looked at all the ages, because you could enter your exact age, we had an average of 71.9 for all of the respondents. The median on that list was 73, so half of the sample was younger than 73, half was older. Women were an average of 71 years of age, while men were 73. As far as years as a member, as you can see, a pretty close representation. The green bar is the survey sample. The blue bar is the membership census, which is one of the few demographic categories we can compare. So the average of all the sample is 12.4 years, which is a little longer than I typically see in some of my other South Florida clients. From a residential community perspective, we ask which particular community of the 10 you reside in, and the sample of the respondents, which is the blue number, is very comparable to the percentage who live in each of those communities. So now we have a pretty representative sample from an age. I think from an age, at least that's what Tim informed me, was that it looked very similar. We have a very basic representative sample from the communities as well. We asked the question, how many months per year do you reside in your Stonebridge home? This is a typical profile of South Florida communities. 28% said they reside year-round, but that gives us a seasonality of almost 3/4 of the population, which defines the season as more November through April, with the fringe months of May and October. We asked, in which region did you reside prior to moving to Stonebridge? This is largely a community of Northeastern and Midwestern members, very small percentage of Southeast, Canadian, Europe, Southwest, or Northwest. We asked, do you live alone or with someone else, such as a spouse, significant other, family member, or companion? As you can see, 88% live with somebody, only 12% live alone. We also asked, do you reside with children younger than the age of 23, and only 1% indicated that they did. From an employment status, 3/4 of the membership who participated are not working, while almost 1/4 are still working either part or full-time. We ask, please indicate the frequency of use or participation in the following areas of the club. This gives you a profile of where members spend most of their time in the club, framed by this box right here. And the yellow arrows are indicating the most frequent used amenities or facilities in the club, which become the golf, which includes golf practice area, bistro, lunch, and fitness center. One of the most important questions we could ask is, please rate how important the following elements are when you judge the overall value of your membership experience. Now, I'm a little out of order here. This comes next. This is a question about value of the information that you received. And you can see the blue bar indicates very satisfied. Green bar is satisfied. Yellow bar is neither satisfied or dissatisfied, which also translates to no opinion. And the orange bar is somewhat dissatisfied, and the pink bar is very dissatisfied. So we have very little dissatisfaction with the value of the information received. The mean scores are calculated by giving each of those ratings a score of 5, for example, for very satisfied, all the way down to 1 for very dissatisfied. Not apply gets a 0. So when we calculate the mean scores, we're looking for a score of 4 or higher. And in most of these elements here, we do have that. And the average you see on the lower right-hand corner is the average of all of those elements together. Staying with information for a moment, we asked, what about the volume of the information you received from the club? Well, 92% said, oh, it's about right. 2% said too much, and 6% said not enough. Now we get to the question I was jumping to earlier about membership value. We asked this question, please rate the importance of the following 20 elements when judging the overall value of your Stonebridge Country Club membership experience. Here's your top 10, and the box frames your top 5, which are the most important elements to the members of this club. Food quality, staff service quality, and community appearance are commonly the top 3 in the South Florida club communities. Security oftentimes ranks up there in the top 5, but certainly in the top 10. And a little bit unusual from some of your competitors, information from management and the board rates a little higher than I see in other clubs. Bistro comes in at 6, golf course conditions at 7. Overall membership costs is usually in this position at 7 or 8, and then grill room and golf operations rounds out the top 10. The second 10 are important, but just important to fewer people. As you see, the smaller blue bar and green bar, and a little bit more increasing size in the orange and pink bar, which indicates unimportant or very unimportant. Largely, something is unimportant because you don't use it. For example, tennis facilities, we have 38% who consider it either very important or important, largely because those are the tennis players in the club. If there were just a few questions we could ask in the survey, it would be these: the overall membership experience. So we did ask, please rate how satisfied or dissatisfied you are with the components of your overall experience. We have a new scale now, starting with very satisfied all the way down to very dissatisfied. Here is your key elements of overall satisfaction. Compared to the 2022 survey, the mean scores in 2023, we had 1 improvement in staff service quality and 1 decline slightly by 3 percentage points in the value for the cost. That's a common decline when you see a dues increase that ranges anywhere near 10%. You tend to get a little bit of an increased dissatisfaction in value for the cost. Compared to your competitors, though, this is a very small decline. Some of your competitors have much larger increases in dues and suffer more dissatisfaction ratings in their survey. What's important here is that 88% are either very satisfied or satisfied with staff service quality, and 89% are either satisfied or very satisfied with the overall membership experience, which produces a score above 4 at 4.33 and 4.25. These are very strong scores compared to any club I work with in South Florida. What's also important to many members is when they bring a guest, they want the club to shine. And at 4.2, with only 4% dissatisfaction and significantly high 83% satisfaction, this is a very strong score. Continuing with the satisfaction or dissatisfaction scale, we ask about governance or the board and management. While the scores for management and information from the board haven't statistically changed from 2022, there's been a slight decline in board performance and financial management of the club. And again, this is very common following a dues increase that's larger than the average increases of the past. So you see a decline in the average 4.02 from the 4.15, which is only 3%. Again, much smaller than you typically see in other clubs. The board is down 4% on their 3.92, and management, financial management of the club is down 5%. When we look at a correlation analysis, it reveals the influence of one measure on another. Perfect correlation would be 1.0, which would mean that as one score goes up, so does the other, which then shows us a relationship of influence. Here's what correlates with overall membership satisfaction. The strongest correlation is with management performance, which makes sense because management and staff are the ones that are online, create that environment, that cultural environment of the club. Overall board performance is important because they're the oversight function. Value for the cost is important in every club. And financial management is also important. Those four measures tend to correlate the highest. Again, a 1.0 would be a perfect correlation. So this translates to approximately 3/4 of the time when someone is satisfied with management performance, they're also satisfied with the overall membership experience. What correlates with board performance? This is a much stronger score. At 0.830 is the information provided to the membership. This is common in clubs everywhere, regardless of whether it's South Florida or North Carolina or any other area that I work in. That's always a strong correlation because the membership wants to know what the board is planning, how they're allocating money, and how they're going to use those resources to create a membership experience through the management staff and management. Also high correlation is financial management, which stands to reason. Overall management performance, that reveals the teamwork between the board and management. And then of course, membership value for the cost creates that last high correlating component. And for management, financial management again correlates highly, but administrative services also correlates very high. This is common as well. Administrative services is a critical element of management performance because it touches so many members and is there a sort of, a clearinghouse of information. When a member needs to know something, that's who you call. We did a net promoter score rating by using the question, using the scale of 0 meaning very unlikely, 10 meaning very likely. Please indicate how likely you are to recommend the Stonebridge Country Club community to a friend or acquaintance. Your score is 70, which is very strong compared to the clubs in your area. Typically, anything over 50 is a good score. And how did we come up with 70? We took the promoters, which rated at 9 or 10, which combining those percentages is 77. And we subtracted the detractors, which is 7%. So that produces a score of 70. Scores for women were 74. Scores for members 70 to 79 were 78. So a little bit stronger in the higher users of the club. As we did in 2022, we ask you to rate how much you agree or disagree with 5 different statements. And here they are. I feel safe residing in Stonebridge Country Club. No one disagreed with that and produced a very high mean score of 4.85, statistically identical to that of 22. I'm optimistic about the future of Stonebridge Country Club. 4.55, very strong with only 4% disagreement. I have adequate opportunities to voice my opinion about the club matters and governance, shown a decline, slight decline of 9%. And that tended to decline most with members of 18 or more years and over the age of 80. As a single member living alone, I feel comfortable attending social events. 79 of the people who indicated living alone pretty much were in agreement with that, with the exception of 18% who either were somewhat in a disagreement or disagreed, producing a score of 4.6. Again, I remind you that 4 is the minimum target that we're looking for. Anything above that is a very strong score. So 4.85 is incredibly strong. Of the 101 newer members of 1 to 2 years, there's been a slight improvement over the 22 score of 3.16. So that shows that potentially, I think we're getting less volume at a time, more easily handled, and some of the improvement that were made in onboarding new resident and members. As I said earlier, looking at operations, administrative services is a very important component of the club and correlates highly. Here's their satisfaction scores. Ranges from 4.27 to 4.08, statistically identical with what it was in 2022, with a slightly dissatisfaction of less than 4% or less, which is very low. So high satisfaction, good scores with an average of 4.21, which is 84% satisfaction. Before we get into the amenities, let's look at the tangible stage upon which those amenities occur, that being the facilities. Compared to the 2022 scores, we have 4 declines. Tennis dropped 4%, bistro down 4%, restrooms down 7%, and fitness center down 5%, which is not a big drop, but it is a drop, which, as you can see at the bottom, the average has declined from 3.93 to 3.82. And I know the bistro is scheduled for an improvement. That may bring the scores up significantly over time. So we'll see when we do the survey again, how much it has changed. Let's look at the bistro satisfaction. Now we go back to operations for the amenities. Compared to 2022, we have 5 of the 7 measures were improved anywhere from 3 to 8%, with an average of 3.89. It's up 4% from what it was in 22. Menu offerings at 25% dissatisfaction is still an issue, even though it did improve. In every survey that I do in South Florida, menu offerings is always on the bottom of this list, some with less dissatisfaction than this, some with even more, depending on what's being offered. But typically a very frequent use dining venue, we will see dissatisfaction in menu offerings or menu variety. On the flip side, when we look at the grill and bar, while the bistro was the number 6 value driver, the grill, bar, and main dining room is the number 9 value driver, with 6 of 8 of the variables improving from 2022, with an average of 4.04 compared to 3.93. That's an 81% satisfaction. Still, we have dissatisfaction of higher than 10% with menu offerings at 20. We ask, when dining outside of your home, including takeout, approximately what percentage of your meals are from a club venue? This profile shows that approximately 62%, or exactly 62%, are less than 40% of the time, which gives you a market share of 34%. How does that compare with other clubs? Right on the mark for average. Some clubs are just a little higher, and some clubs, depending on how frequently their dining venues are open and how many dining venues they have, their market share is less. Another component that influences this is the competition outside the gates with all the commercial restaurants, which is typically very strong in the South Florida market. The more frequent users are age 70 to 79. Special events is the 16 value driver, and we have no change from the 2022 survey, the average being 3.89, which produces a 78% satisfaction, and this satisfaction is between 1 and 10%, with the only item reaching 10% is the event value for the price. As we know, all prices have come up regardless of whether it's a grocery store or gas station or whatever. It's not uncommon to see prices in the club have to raise as well because of the suppliers of the events. Well, we asked about the volume of special events, and 90% said, oh, it's about right. 4% said too many, and 6% indicated, well, there's not enough. We go to golf operations, which is the number 10 value driver. And we see some red and green scores here. To improve, reservation systems improve 5%. Access to preferred tee times improve 6%. We have 4 declining scores ranging anywhere from 3 to 8%. The overall satisfaction declined 3%. Instruction down 5%. Tournaments down 3%. And walking policy, which took the biggest hit, is down 8%. Satisfaction ratings range anywhere from 96% all the way down to 36%, while dissatisfaction ranges from 1% all the way down to 27%. The average score of 4.10 produces an 82% satisfaction for this particular amenity. Only 2 items exceeded the 10% dissatisfaction threshold, that being walking policy and ranger effectiveness. As we did before, we asked, well, regarding the number of tournaments, 81% said, no, it's about right, while 16% said too many and 3% said not enough. We move into the golf course conditions, and you see 3 declines, slight declines. Landscaping declined 4%, green 7%, and restrooms 9%. However, the scores, landscaping had a pretty high score of 4.3, cart pass 4.02, as with overall satisfaction. Overall satisfaction is a critical score for any of these amenities. And 4.02 is the target zone, which you're trying to reach, with the 2 areas of dissatisfaction, 2 on the bottom, being greens and restrooms. Greens is a concern, which are going to be repaired, of course, with your renovation. So that ideally will be higher next time we do this survey. Practice facilities, not as high in the scores here, but yet there's been 1 improvement in the practice putting green. So as you can see, the mean scores of 3.98, 3.36 are influenced by the higher percentage of dissatisfaction. Average score, the average of these 4 components is 3.69, or 73% satisfaction, lower than your competition and lower than you desire to be. So hopefully improvement in the practice facility will also change these scores. Fitness center is the 15 value driver. And here are the scores with only 1 decline in overall satisfaction. And the decline was a 4% decline. However, your 4.37 at the top for personal trainer service quality, fitness staff service quality, exercise class quality, fitness center facility cleanliness. These are very strong scores. So your average of 3.93, statistically identical to 3.99, and very close to that 4 threshold for the overall average. Of the 20 variables measured for importance, tennis was number 20, simply because fewer people play tennis. But the scores for group clinics, staff service quality, and individual instruction are very strong. Overall satisfaction at 4.14. When you average the all elements together, it's 4.1, pretty high satisfaction, 82%. Dissatisfaction here is 6% or less for everything except court maintenance, which is the only item that exceeded the 10% threshold. Aquatics is the number 17 value driver. And only one decline here in pool furniture quality. It's just common, I see this in a lot of clubs, that pool furniture as well as lounge seating and shade availability typically are on the lower part of this list, but not that low, with ranging scores from 4.11 to 3.73 and an average of 3.95 is right exactly in the middle of what I see in the South Florida clubs. The only area here that exceeded 10% was the lounge seating and shade availability. We move now to the community elements, starting with the list of common area landscaping all the way down to entrance appeal. We had 3 declining scores here. Landscaping dropped by 3%, parking lot by 3, street lighting by 5, and entrance appeal dropped the most by 11%. 3 of the items are 10% or higher, starting with lighting, sidewalks, and entrance appeal. But yet the scores, the average of the scores is 4.02 at that threshold. Nonetheless, it has dropped from 4.17 just slightly. So areas of attention are always those that exceed 10% dissatisfaction. Common area landscaping is a very important component and is a high element that members use when they decide whether they want to move into a community and whether they continue to like living in them. Security is the number 4 value driver. As we look at gate access and security, these are very high scores, no change from 22, and an average score of 4.43 is one of the highest in the survey. So they're doing an excellent job there. Dissatisfaction is 2% or less for any one component. Well, I've given you a lot of scores and a lot of bar charts. What if we do a summary here of the averages? Now, the averages were shown on the lower right-hand part of the screen. Here's a list of those averages sequenced by the highest to the lowest. That line represents the 4.0 target threshold. Your average of all of these 16 scores is 4.0. 8 are higher than 4. 8 are lower than 4, with practice range being on the bottom, which is going to be improved. Golf course will be improved, as will bistro. So those 3 scores we know will probably improve, but nonetheless, targets of attention are always at the lower than 4 threshold. So this is the average of all the scores, but when you combine this or show the contrast with the overall indicator shown here with that line of 4, now you begin to see that the overall indicator in many cases exceeds the mean score for the average of all the indicators. So in some of those elements, we're not quite as strong in influencing the perception of overall in the member's mind. Still, 5 below 4. 5 of these fall below the mean score of 4, the practice range, fitness center, special events, bistro, and pool. Service quality is one of the strengths of Stonebridge Country Club, and here's the scores for service quality in contrast at 4.35, in contrast with the overall score of 4.24. Both of these scores are very good, and when we look at the overall perception, this has to be a very pleasing picture for management and for the board, suggesting that not only are we doing well on the overall indicator, but the staff service quality is clearly a strength of Stonebridge. We've talked about importance of components, and we've talked about the satisfaction with those components. When you contrast the two, you can create a perceptual map. So in this particular map, quadrant 1 in the upper left would mean it's of high importance or higher importance, but yet the scores are below 4. Quadrant 2 Importance is above 4, and satisfaction is also above 4. This would be the quadrant of choice. Quadrant 3 is lower scores for importance and lower satisfaction scores. And then finally, quadrant 4, lower on importance, but higher on satisfaction. Here's what the 2022 survey produced. So again, the line in the center is 4, meaning satisfied. 3 is the neither satisfied nor dissatisfied. So we look at the scores that fall in quadrant 1, food quality, bistro, price value, grill room, and website didn't fall in there, but those are the scores that fell there. A little bit below the line on important special events, aquatics, club activities, and member meeting rooms. The strengths, as you see in the upper quadrant of quadrant 2, service quality, security, course conditions, golf operations, socializing, community appearance. These are the elements that you want in there, as well as food quality. So we look at 23, and the green scores are those that improve. Service quality improved significantly. Community appearance dropped slightly, as did price value, which is common after a dues increase of higher than 10% or close to. Bistro dropped a little. Grill bar and dining room bistro improved. Grill bar and dining room also improved. Website remained the same. Fitness center dropped slightly, but what's in the blue type remained the same as it did in 23. So a little bit of an improvement shown here in some of these variables. Looking at that, the items that garnered 10% or higher on dissatisfaction produces a list of where some of the operational focus should lie. Golf walking policy, I know, has garnered a lot of conversation in the club. Short game practice area, bistro menu offerings will be hard to change simply because most clubs cannot change as fast as members want it to change. But I'm sure that something could be done to reduce from the 25% dissatisfaction. Fitness center stretching space, probably not going to change. Golf course restrooms, maybe. Main dining room, menu offerings, maybe not, but certainly work can be done there. Entrance appeal is a bigger capital issue. Golf practice putting green, golf course greens, those will improve because of the renovation. And now we get down to the lesser amounts of dissatisfaction, which I think will garner the attention of management in producing higher levels of satisfaction. Members were allowed to offer comments, and 349 members did offer comments. That's 51% of the members who did make a comment. By nature, comments revealed in surveys like this can attract more negative than positive, but the comments that I read were relatively constructive and helpful for management. So let's look at what the 177 women said in different themes. Now, a person could make a comment that included 5 themes. So I'm collectively showing you the themes, which 9.4 was the highest percent, which is common. Rarely do you see much more than 10% as the highest theme in a series of comments. And the women were more focused on menu variety and offerings, maintenance and housekeeping. 7.1 said they were overall satisfied with what is going on in the club. Scheduled renovations garnered a little bit of conversation. Club entrances, staff kudos are at 5.5%. Landscaping, now we get down to the smaller amount. So the 9.4 represented 17 women. 7.3 represented 13. 3.9%, which is event activity or staff training and food quality, 7 women, and then 2.1 is 4 women. Again, remember, the comments will be valuable for operations. 172 men, half of the men offered a comment. Here are their themes, which is very common: board and management, golf, and cost typically are the more common themes for men. When I looked at the theme profile from each man, from the men and the women in this particular survey, it was very similar to last year, and it's very similar to clubs throughout South Florida. So giving an opportunity to make comments relative to how things could be better is very valuable for management. I know they will read each one of them and take them to heart. Well, we've reached the last slide, and that's the headlines. If we walk away from the survey after looking at all these numbers and bar charts, here's what's, I think, are headlines to remember. Food quality, staff service quality, community appearance, security, information from both board and management are Stonebridge number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 value drivers. Something to remember for leadership and staff. 89% are satisfied or very satisfied with the overall experience, which is a very high percentage. Satisfaction with staff service quality is similar at 88%, very strong level of satisfaction. Scores for management team and board performance are 4.16 and 3.92 respectively, which semantically on a scale of 5 points is satisfied. Could we do better? Sure. Nearly half of the operational scores exceed 4, that target zone, with the highest being 4.74 for golf operations staff. It's interesting that most clubs, this is their highest staff service quality score is for golf, outside golf operations. The highest dissatisfaction is with walking policy, short game area, and bistro menu. We can put all menus in that as well as garnering some higher dissatisfaction. But the list that I showed you earlier is the profile where management will spend a great deal of attention. And finally, what to be proud of is the staff service quality scores range from 4.74 to 4.22, well above the 4 threshold, averaging a very high 4.35. That's it. Thank you very much for participating in this year's 2023 member survey.